Hey guys, Crescent Moon. Today's story takes you deep into ancient China, where beauty was wrapped in silk and pain, the haunting tradition of foot binding. This is a slow, emotional journey through generations of women who turned suffering into grace, and silence into strength. Candle. So, if you love calm, historical bedtime stories filled with mystery, culture, and quiet emotions, stay till the end and let this story whisper you to sleep. Thought Balloon, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because more beautiful and forgotten histories like this are coming soon, only here, where history sleeps in whispers. The morning sun poured softly across the courtyard, brushing over the white lily petals that swayed in the gentle breeze. In the village of Songcheng, where narrow alleys twisted like rivers of time and the scent of jasmine lingered even at dusk, children laughed quietly, their bare feet pattering against the earth, leaving soft prints in the soil. Among them was little May, her hair dark as river stones and her eyes catching every flicker of sunlight. She ran across the courtyard clutching a wooden hoop, her world a simple blend of games and whispers. Her mother, Li Hua, stood at the edge of the garden, hands folded as she watched. Her eyes were kind, but carried a hidden weight. She had learned the art of foot binding from her own mother, and the ritual waiting for May was a step into something unseen, a delicate balance between grace and pain. From the storeroom came the faint rustle of silk, as if it were alive, anticipating the ceremony soon to begin. May, her mother called softly, her voice carrying a heaviness the little girl couldn't yet understand. May paused, tilting her head with innocent curiosity. The garden seemed to fall silent, petals frozen midair, as if the earth itself knew this was the day when beauty would begin to wear a quiet crown of suffering. As the first light of dawn slipped through the lattice windows, Li Hua reached for the silken wraps. Each ribbon was dyed the soft pink of spring petals, embroidered with tiny golden lotuses. They lay in the box like sleeping snakes, waiting to coil around delicate feet. May's eyes widened with a mix of wonder and fear. The ritual was rarely spoken of, for its pain was a secret passed down in whispers through generations. Yet in the hush of the garden, she felt something stir, a blend of curiosity, trust, and the faint trembling of change to come. Around them, the village carried on as usual. Mothers hummed lullabies, the scent of steaming rice drifted from kitchens, and the wind whispered through silk, carrying its secret promise. In the distance, an old willow swayed, its shadow stretching like fingers across the stone path. And in that serene morning light, May's small feet would soon be wrapped in silk, beginning a journey that would shape not only her body, but the rhythm of her entire life. Li Hua knelt beside her daughter, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted little May's foot into her lap. Every movement was careful and deliberate, guided by generations of memory. She had performed this ritual countless times before, yet each time felt as raw and tender as the first. The silk ribbon slid across May's skin, warm, soft, and filled with quiet tension, carrying a promise of restraint. "Don't cry, May," Li Hua whispered, her voice blending comfort and authority. "This is how we walk in beauty. This is how we honor our family." Her hands moved slowly, pressing, curling, binding. The child's toes bent delicately under the weight of tradition, the ribbon pulling tighter, wrapping around the arch, shaping her tiny foot into what unseen eyes called perfection. Pain became a silent companion, soft but steady, wrapped in silk and silence. Outside, the garden seemed to lean closer, listening. Bees drifted lazily among the lilies, their hum a gentle counterpoint to the quiet strain indoors. May's breath quickened, but she didn't cry, not yet. Her mother's hands were steady, almost tender, shaping the foot like an artist molding clay. Each fold and twist told a story. It was love expressed as ritual, a paradox of care and sacrifice. Li Hua paused, her fingers resting on the silk, feeling the faint pulse beneath it. She remembered her own mother's hands, and her mother's before her, each generation passing down this same mix of knowledge, pain, and devotion. In that small sunlit room, history wrapped around them like threads of silk, binding not just flesh, but memory, expectation, and the quiet endurance of women who walked in grace. May looked down at her foot, barely understanding what had changed. It felt strange, small, folded, and tight. But when her mother smiled, a soft warmth filled her chest. There was trust there, an unspoken promise. The garden outside hadn't changed, nor had the lilies, but inside that room, everything was different. A threshold had been crossed, from innocence to tradition, from freedom to beauty woven with pain. By evening, the sun had sunk low, pouring a warm amber glow across the wooden floorboards. May's feet, now tightly bound, felt strange and foreign, small, delicate, like fragile flowers trapped in glass. She moved slowly, carefully, her hands brushing against the walls to keep her balance. Every step was deliberate and measured, a quiet dance of endurance and adaptation. The house was still, as if the world itself held its breath while she learned the rhythm of silk and bone. Li Hua walked close behind, murmuring soft words of encouragement, guiding her daughter's steps. Each tap of May's feet echoed gently through the small room, the sound of beginnings. The pain lingered, steady and sharp, yet May focused on movement, on balance, on finding the strange grace that came with every careful stride. This was transformation, not sudden, but slow, unfolding like a lotus at dawn. As the shadows stretched long across the floor, May began to grasp the quiet rules of her new world. Beauty, as those before her had defined it, demanded patience, obedience, and the strength to endure. Yet even through the pain, there was a kind of wonder, the realization that she was part of something ancient, a lineage of women whose steps had echoed through generations. When night finally fell and the garden shimmered in silver moonlight, May lay down with her feet still wrapped in silk. Her eyes grew heavy, her thoughts drifting. In her dreams, she ran freely across wide fields of white lilies, her feet unbound, her steps light, while the world around her whispered of grace, endurance, and stories yet to unfold. The first binding was complete. Her journey had begun. The mornings in May's home became a soft, quiet rhythm. Each day, she rose to the sound of the wind whispering through bamboo, carrying with it a faint scent of tea and dried jasmine. Her feet, now wrapped in pink silk, felt foreign, like delicate porcelain pressed gently against the earth. She learned the careful steps that would define her movements for the rest of her life. Each step was measured, deliberate, a silent dialogue between body and tradition. Pain was not cruel, it was subtle, an ever-present companion teaching patience. Her mother's hands guided her at first, then slowly withdrew, trusting that May's small, disciplined body could learn the quiet language of silk and bone. Every morning, as the sun touched the courtyard, May practiced, sometimes tripping over the folds of her wraps, sometimes gliding gracefully, like a small bird learning to balance on a thin branch. The village seemed to notice the change. Women walked with eyes that measured, whispered softly behind latticed doors. May's world became a tapestry of lessons, which steps were graceful, which gestures drew admiration, and how silence could speak louder than words. In this quiet, the child began to understand that beauty demanded endurance, and every step forward was both a surrender and a triumph. By the time May had reached the age of 7, the courtyard became a stage for quiet observation. She played with other girls, yet always at a measured pace. Sometimes, when no one watched, she slipped off her small shoes to feel the ground, toes stretching freely, and a thrill of forbidden freedom ran through her like cool water. These were her secret moments, stolen breaths in a world that demanded control and restraint. Her mother, though never cruel, reminded her gently, "Grace is carried in silence, May. Your strength will show when no one is looking." And so, the child learned the art of concealment, hiding discomfort behind soft smiles, curving her steps into a rhythm that pleased the eyes but not the body. Each ribbon became a lullaby of patience, each fold a note in the quiet song of duty. At night, when the courtyard grew dark and stars peered like silent witnesses, May whispered to herself a dream she could not yet speak aloud: to run, to dance, to move freely across fields without silk pressing her feet. But even this secret longing folded into her chest, hidden behind the layers of love, respect, and fear that shaped her growing world. One afternoon, the village prepared for a small festival, lanterns hanging like fireflies in the soft evening air. May, now slightly older and more practiced in the ways of bound feet, was asked to perform a short dance. The other girls stepped aside, and the courtyard hushed in anticipation. Every movement, every turn, was a whisper of elegance, a quiet declaration of discipline and grace. Her small, bound feet moved in crescent shapes across the stone floor, each step a delicate compromise between pain and beauty. The silk stretched and folded, a soft rhythm in time with the slow beating of her heart. Onlookers admired the harmony of her motion, unaware of the tiny aches hidden beneath the ribbon folds, the silent protests of the child's tender body. And in the quiet of that festival evening, May felt something she could not name: pride intertwined with sorrow, freedom folded into ritual, a song of endurance rising from deep inside her chest. Her mother watched from the shadows, a small smile tracing her lips, eyes reflecting both relief and longing. In that moment, every step May took carried centuries of tradition, the legacy of women who had learned to dance on pain, and the whispered hope that one day, those steps might tell their own story. The scent of incense floated lazily through the halls of the red chamber, mixing with the faint aroma of silk and lacquered wood. May, now a young girl of 15, stood quietly, her small, bound feet resting on the polished floor. The mirrors reflected a girl transformed, delicate, graceful, every movement measured to perfection. The villagers called it the beauty of a lotus foot, a harmony of elegance and endurance, though no one truly saw the quiet ache beneath the ribbons. Her mother, Li Hua, brushed a stray lock of hair from May's forehead, her hands steady, practiced, yet betraying a flicker of worry. "Remember, May," she whispered softly, "beauty is not in the mirror alone, but in how the world sees you carry it. Walk slowly. Speak softly. Smile quietly." The chamber was filled with other women, elders, and servants preparing for the marriage ritual. Lanterns cast a warm glow, making every fold of silk and every embroidered pattern shimmer. May's heart fluttered, excitement mixed with nervousness, curiosity mingled with a quiet longing. She was ready, yet she felt the weight of generations pressing gently upon her shoulders. Every step she would take in this room, every smile she would offer, carried the history of the women before her, the stories of patience, endurance, and grace that shaped her very being. The ceremony began with the softest of music, flutes and zither mingling in the air like whispers. May moved carefully, each step choreographed by tradition, each toe folded into the silk that bound it. Her painted soles glimmered faintly under the lantern light, small lotus blossoms drawn with delicate brushstrokes, marking her as a woman ready to marry, ready to honor her family, ready to endure. Yet behind the quiet beauty lay walls lined with silence. Elders whispered, servants moved in hushed coordination, and the mirrors reflected not just her image, but the subtle ache that accompanied every motion. Pain and beauty wove together like threads in a tapestry, inseparable, necessary, eternal. May felt the rhythm of the chamber, the heartbeat of tradition in each step, each small sigh that escaped her lips when no one watched. She walked through corridors she had never explored before, each step precise, measured. Her bound feet clicked softly against the wooden floors, a gentle percussion to the song of her life. She thought of the fields she had once run across, barefoot, laughing with freedom, now replaced by silk, ritual, and expectation. And yet, within that restraint, she discovered a quiet power, the ability to command attention, to express grace, and to endure in ways only her body could understand. The night settled softly over the red chamber, the sky outside a deep, velvety black sprinkled with stars. May rose before dawn, moving quietly so as not to disturb her family. Her bound feet, though weary, carried her across the silent hallways. Each step was deliberate, a meditation in motion, a private conversation with herself. She paused by a window, watching the first light of morning spill over rooftops and gardens. In the reflection of the glass, she saw a young woman transformed by ritual, by patience, by centuries of tradition. The small ache in her feet reminded her that beauty demanded endurance, that grace was inseparable from sacrifice. Yet she did not feel trapped, she felt part of a lineage, a story that stretched across generations, whispered in silk and echoed in the quiet click of tiny steps. Outside, the world began to stir. Lanterns were extinguished, birds shifted in the bamboo, and the wind carried the faint scent of jasmine into her room. May lifted her chin, closed her eyes briefly, and took a final careful step before returning to the chamber. Each step, each measured movement, was a quiet declaration that she had walked her path, embraced her destiny, and carried the mirror of grace within her. The courtyard smelled faintly of tea and wet earth as May knelt beside a small wooden chest, lifting silken ribbons carefully folded inside. Each ribbon carried a history, a mother's hands, a grandmother's patience, a lineage of women who had walked in beauty and endured in silence. May's own hands trembled slightly as they brushed the soft fabric. Her daughter, little Lynn, played nearby with a wooden hoop, laughing and unaware of the day that would come. May's heart swelled with a strange mix of love and apprehension. She remembered her own first binding, the anticipation, the fear, the ache. The ribbons in her hands were no longer foreign, they were a thread connecting her past, her present, and the future she would carefully shape. May whispered a soft lullaby, a tune her mother had sung to her, the melody curling around the courtyard like gentle smoke. "One day, you will walk in grace," she murmured, "and your steps will carry the stories of all who came before you." The silk glimmered faintly in the morning light, soft as petals, soft as whispers, soft as secrets. By afternoon, May's hands were steady, wrapping Lynn's tiny foot with slow precision. The child winced slightly, a sharp intake of breath, and May paused. Her heart clenched, the ache was familiar, intimate, unavoidable. "It is beautiful," she said softly, though the word carried a weight heavier than silk. "And in beauty, there is endurance. There is strength. Each fold, each twist of the ribbon, was a small lesson. May remembered the quiet pride that had filled her when she had first danced in the courtyard, the private triumph of learning to walk with bound feet. Now she imparted that same rhythm to Lin, guiding her small steps with whispered encouragement in gentle hands. Outside, the wind rustled through bamboo, carrying the faintest note of flowers from the garden. Time seemed suspended, each moment stretching into eternity. May's mind wandered, reflecting on the paradox of their lives: pain made beautiful, restraint made graceful, endurance made revered. And yet, she understood a subtle joy. In passing these lessons to Lin, she was not only shaping her daughter's feet, but weaving continuity, legacy, and the soft power of women who endured silently. As dusk settled over the courtyard, Lin slipped away for a moment, brushing the silk lightly, her small toes stretching beneath the folds. May watched from a distance, her heart both tender and heavy. She remembered her own secret moments as a child, when she had run barefoot across the fields, free and unbound, and she understood her daughter's longing. The moon rose slowly, bathing the garden in silver. May knelt beside Lin, taking her hand, whispering words of comfort. "Your feet are small, but your heart is wide," she said. "One day, you will understand that strength lives in silence, and freedom in patience." For a moment, Lin looked at her mother with wide, curious eyes, and the world felt suspended, a place where love and tradition intertwined. The soft rustle of silk, the gentle ache beneath it, the quiet cadence of footsteps learning balance, all became part of the evening's symphony. In the stillness, May allowed herself a secret smile, remembering her own dreams of running freely, and feeling the faint hope that Lin, too, might someday carry both the beauty and the dream in her steps. The garden held its breath. The petals of the lilies swayed gently, and the lineage of women continued, whispered softly beneath the wrapping of silk. The courtyard was alive with quiet murmurs as women gathered under the soft glow of lanterns. The festival of early spring had arrived, a time for subtle dances, whispered tales, and observing the delicate beauty of lotus-bound feet. May's daughter, Lin, now learning the rhythm of silk and restraint, watched the older women, her eyes wide with curiosity. Steps moved softly over the stone floors, each echoing like a muted song of grace. Mothers guided daughters, sisters nudged each other gently, and the air hummed with unspoken stories. The courtyard seemed to hold its breath, as if the wind itself listened. Every bound foot told a tale, of patience, endurance, and a quiet pride wrapped in silk. May watched from the edge, her own feet tucked beneath her skirts, memories of her youth stirring softly. She remembered the first time she had danced under lantern light, the ache mingling with pride, the silence of expectation pressing gently against her heart. Now she observed Lin, guiding her subtly with gentle touches and whispered advice. The courtyard became a stage where generations intersected, the soft click of small feet a rhythm of continuity, a song passed down in shadows and silk. One afternoon, a healer arrived at the village, an outsider with soft eyes and careful hands. The women gathered in hushed clusters, wary yet intrigued. The physician spoke gently, not of condemnation, but of care. "The body is tender, delicate," he murmured, "and while tradition shapes us, we must not forget compassion." May felt a flutter of unease and curiosity. His words brushed against her memory, the secret pain beneath beauty, the hidden moments when she had longed to run freely. Some mothers whispered anxiously, others nodded, understanding but fearful. Lin tugged at her mother's sleeve, sensing the tension. Later, May found the healer quietly cleaning his tools under the fading sun. "I have seen too many children suffer," he confessed softly. "Yet, I cannot change what has been cherished for generations. I can only tend, quietly, where I may." May nodded, feeling the weight of the paradox, tradition preserved through love and endurance, yet carrying inevitable pain. That evening, the lanterns flickered over the courtyard, casting shadows that seemed to acknowledge both care and quiet suffering, both loyalty and longing. As the festival reached its peak, Lin, now learning to master the rhythm of silk-bound feet, was encouraged to perform a small dance. Her steps were hesitant, careful, yet her spirit sought freedom in the motion. The courtyard hushed, anticipation soft as falling petals. For a brief moment, she let her mind drift, imagining herself unbound, spinning across fields of lilies. Each movement became a small rebellion, delicate and fleeting. May watched, heart tight, understanding the tension, the beauty of grace intertwined with the ache of restriction. The elder's eyes softened, not in disapproval, but in recognition of a courage quietly stirring in the child. Lin's feet, though bound, carried a secret rhythm, a song whispered beneath silk, a tale of freedom folded within duty. That night, the courtyard seemed to glow with unspoken pride, for beauty, endurance, and the shadows of courage that lingered behind each carefully measured step. Morning sunlight filtered softly through the lattice windows, painting delicate patterns on the wooden floor. Li Hua knelt beside her daughter Lin, lifting the silken ribbons with hands both gentle and firm. Each fold of silk was a story, of mothers before her, of their dreams and fears, of quiet endurance that had been passed down like a sacred trust. Li Hua whispered softly, "I wrap your feet not to harm, but to guide you toward beauty, grace, and respect. Each step you take will carry the love of those who came before." Lin's small hands trembled slightly as she allowed her mother to work. There was curiosity, fear, and a hint of excitement woven together. Pain would come, but so would understanding, the knowledge that grace was not merely seen, but felt in the rhythm of each step. As Li Hua tightened the ribbons, she remembered her own mother's hands, her own first ache, her first dance. Each generation repeated the ritual, not in cruelty, but in devotion. In the quiet of the morning, the mother and daughter shared a sacred moment, where love and duty intertwined, each not a whisper of history, each fold a testament to endurance. Later, in the soft glow of afternoon, Li Hua opened an old silk box inherited from her grandmother. Inside lay tiny shoes, embroidered with delicate lotus blossoms, ribbons faded with age, and folded letters recounting the thoughts and experiences of women long gone. May lifted each item gently, feeling the presence of ancestors in the fragile fabric. "The women before us walked in silence," she murmured to Lin. "They endured so we could carry grace, so the world might admire beauty, and so we could learn strength in quiet ways." Lin's eyes widened as she traced the folds of silk with her fingers, sensing the weight of generations. Each ribbon, each tiny shoe, each carefully preserved note was a story of love and sacrifice, a legacy woven into the fabric of their lives. Li Hua sighed softly, realizing the paradox. Pain had been the vessel, beauty the reward, endurance the teacher. And yet, beneath it all was a quiet joy, the knowledge that the family lineage, the traditions, and the whispers of the past were being carried forward, one small step at a time. As dusk fell, the courtyard shimmered with lantern light, petals drifting gently in the evening breeze. Mothers and daughters moved quietly, practicing steps, sharing soft words, and imparting lessons that transcended words. Li Hua watched Lin walk slowly, carefully, her small feet curling beneath the silk ribbons. In those measured steps, she saw the continuum of generations, the endurance of her own childhood, the pride of her mother, and now the beginning of Lin's journey. The women's faces reflected the same mixture of love, sorrow, and quiet pride. Each bound foot was a bridge between past and future, a delicate balance between pain and beauty, restraint and freedom. In the hush of the courtyard, the lineage whispered itself forward, carried in silk and memory, each step a song of resilience, each fold a note of hope. Li Hua knelt by Lin, pressing her hand gently against the child's small back. "Walk carefully," she whispered. "Walk with grace. And remember, strength is in silence, and beauty in endurance." The garden seemed to breathe with them, the lilies swaying as if to the rhythm of small, bound steps, the moonlight tracing shadows that told stories of mothers, daughters, and generations that had walked before. And so, the cycle continued, a quiet, enduring dance of love, sacrifice, and the delicate poetry of women who learned to walk through history on petals beneath their feet. The palace shimmered beneath the soft glow of lanterns, each corridor lined with gilded wood, delicate screens, and the quiet hush of anticipation. May, now grown and refined, stepped carefully onto the polished floors, her bound feet moving with the precision of countless rehearsals. She was here not just as a woman, but as a bearer of generations of grace, each step a silent ode to endurance and beauty. The courtiers and noblewomen watched with quiet admiration. Tiny shoes glimmered like jewels, each embroidered with lotus blossoms or intricate patterns reflecting rank, lineage, and subtle artistry. The air smelled of incense and silk, and each movement carried weight, the weight of expectation, tradition, and the unspoken measure of perfection. May moved gracefully, every step echoing faintly, soft yet deliberate. The court seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging not just beauty but the strength required to achieve it. The emperor's gaze, though gentle, held authority, an unspoken judgment that weighed on every woman, every step, every ribboned foot. On the day of the annual festival, the palace arranged a subtle contest, not openly announced, yet every noblewoman understood the silent challenge. Whose feet were the most perfect? Whose steps carried the elegance of true refinement? Each movement, each measured glide across the marble, became a statement of skill, patience, and dedication. May's heart pulsed quietly as she walked through the hall, feeling the familiar ache beneath the silk. She observed others, noting the tiny differences, the slight curl of a toe, the delicate balance of an arch, the rhythm of each step. Every detail mattered, yet the true essence of grace was hidden, known only to the women who had endured. In the quiet of the palace, beauty became a language, a contest, and a burden all at once. Applause was muted, praise subtle, but the eyes of the emperor and the elders weighed each step. And within this delicate pressure, May understood that perfection was not merely a measure of appearance, it was a reflection of endurance, patience, and the silent strength that women carried within their small, bound feet. By evening, the festivities quieted, lanterns reflecting like soft stars on polished floors. May rested briefly, her small feet aching beneath the ribbons, yet her posture and smile were flawless. She knew the cost of that elegance, every ache, every fold, every hidden tear, and yet she bore it with quiet dignity. The emperor approached, his presence a gentle authority rather than a harsh judgment. He offered a nod, an acknowledgement of her grace, and in that brief moment, May felt both pride and sorrow intertwined. The beauty he saw was only a surface, beneath it lay centuries of pain, endurance, and silent learning. As the palace emptied, May walked slowly through quiet halls, each step a meditation. She reflected on the lineage that had brought her here, the mothers and daughters who had walked in silence, and the delicate power embedded in small, wrapped feet. In the hush of the night, she realized that beauty demanded sacrifice, and that every step, every measured smile, carried both the weight and the poetry of generations. The wind carried a new scent into the village, a mixture of foreign herbs, ink, and distant lands. Western missionaries and travelers had begun to arrive, bringing unfamiliar ideas, gentle critiques, and small tools of healing. The women of the village whispered behind latticed doors, curious yet wary. May, now older and wiser, observed from the edge of her courtyard. She had long carried the weight of tradition, yet the whispers of change stirred something delicate inside her, a flicker of hope, a question, and the faint dream of freedom. Lin, learning the rhythm of bound feet, noticed her mother's eyes lingering on the travelers, reflecting both admiration and contemplation. One afternoon, a visitor knelt quietly by the garden, offering a soft explanation of healing, care, and the possibility of unbinding without condemnation. The words were gentle, like the first notes of a melody that promised release. May listened, her heart torn between loyalty to tradition and curiosity about a world beyond silk, ribbons, and silent endurance. Lin found herself intrigued by the foreign girl who moved with unbound feet, free, light, and effortless. They met quietly in the garden, the moon casting silver patterns across their laughter. Lin's curiosity bloomed, mirroring the secret dreams she had carried beneath the ribbons, the tiny longing for movement without restraint. The foreign girl spoke softly of a world where children ran freely, where beauty was not measured by restriction, and where strength was not hidden beneath silk. Lin's mind wandered, imagining herself stepping lightly across fields, feeling the earth beneath her toes, unbound and alive. May watched from a distance, recognizing the spark in her daughter's eyes, the same spark she herself had felt as a child. Pain had been part of their education, but curiosity and hope were new companions, subtle as shadows at dusk, whispering of possibilities that had once been unthinkable. The day came when May and Lin began the slow, careful process of unbinding. The silk, once so familiar, now seemed fragile and heavy, carrying memories of pain, endurance, and beauty. Each ribbon was loosened gently, each fold unfolded with reverent care, as if they were releasing not only the feet but the accumulated stories of generations. Lin's toes stretched, curling freely for the first time, and a quiet gasp of wonder escaped her lips. May's heart ached at the paradox, the pain that had shaped her daughter, and the freedom that now awakened. The garden seemed to hold its breath, witnessing the subtle transformation, a body freed, a spirit reborn, a lineage honored and gently released. As evening fell, the two women walked slowly across the courtyard, feet bare on the soft earth. The wind whispered through bamboo, carrying petals from white lilies. Each step was careful, exploratory, a meditation in motion. The past remained, etched in memory and silk, but the present opened softly, filled with possibility, freedom, and the quiet poetry of unbound footsteps. The old wooden floorboards creaked softly under May's grandmother's careful steps. Her feet, though bound long ago, now rested quietly in the slippers that had carried her through decades of life, love, and endurance. She moved slowly through the courtyard, memories unfolding like soft petals around her. She remembered the first time silk had been wrapped around her small feet, the ache mingling with pride, the quiet lessons of patience and grace. Now, as she watched her grandchildren play barefoot among the lilies, she felt the weight of history and the freedom of a world changing around her. Each step she took was a soft echo, a reminder of a lineage of women who had endured silently, who had carried beauty and pain together, who had walked through life on petals beneath their feet. The wind whispered through bamboo, and the sunlight traced gentle patterns across the garden. In that serene morning, she felt both loss and pride, loss for the pain endured, pride for the resilience carried across generations. Her footsteps were slow, careful, yet full of quiet authority, a living bridge between past and present. In the corner of a quiet room, an old photograph rested on a wooden shelf, coated in a gentle layer of dust. It depicted a group of women, feet delicately wrapped, smiles soft yet solemn, their eyes reflecting patience, endurance, and pride. May ran her fingers lightly across the faded image, feeling the weight of generations pressing softly into memory. The women in the photograph were ancestors, teachers, mothers, and daughters, their stories immortalized not only in silk and ribbons but in the quiet dignity of captured moments. Lynn leaned closer, her unbound feet brushing against the floor, a contrast to the tiny, folded feet of the women in the image. The past and present intertwined, and in that silent room, history seemed to breathe, whispering tales of love, sacrifice, and beauty. May's grandmother smiled faintly, eyes glistening with memory. "These feet," she said softly, "walked through pain so you could walk freely. Remember them, but do not let their suffering bind your spirit." And so, the photograph became a mirror, reflecting both the weight of tradition and the light of liberation. Night fell gently over the courtyard, lanterns casting soft glows on white petals drifting in the breeze. May's grandmother sat quietly, hands resting on her lap, and closed her eyes, letting memories float freely, of tiny feet curled beneath silk, of dances performed with grace, of generations learning patience and endurance. She felt the ache once familiar to her, now softened by time, replaced by wisdom and reflection. The stories of bound feet were no longer solely about pain, they were about strength, love, and the delicate artistry of walking through life with dignity. Lynn curled beside her, bare feet touching soft earth, a new generation learning freedom, curiosity, and gentle courage. In the hush of night, the garden seemed alive with echoes of the past, whispers of women who had walked before, petals beneath their steps, silk rustling softly, memories intertwined with moonlight. The lineage of Lotus women had passed its final lessons, endurance, grace, and the quiet power of memory. And as the stars blinked above, the women's stories settled into the earth, waiting to be remembered, honored, and softly carried forward. The museum was quiet, almost reverent. Light filtered softly through tall windows, illuminating rows of glass cases filled with tiny shoes, silken ribbons, and artifacts of an age-long past. May, now an elder, walked slowly among the exhibits, her unbound feet brushing softly against polished floors. Each step was careful, reflective, a meditation on history and memory. Inside the cases lay shoes embroidered with delicate lotus blossoms, ribbons folded meticulously, each item carrying the weight of generations. May paused, her fingers hovering above the glass, tracing the invisible stories contained within. These were not merely objects, they were vessels of endurance, beauty, and quiet pain, whispering of women who had walked through centuries with patience and grace. The air was fragrant with polished wood and faint incense, carrying a stillness that seemed to honor the past. Visitors moved quietly, their footsteps softened, eyes lifted in wonder and reflection. In the hush of the museum, May felt the presence of her ancestors, their whispers mingling with the wind, the soft rustle of silk echoing faintly in her mind. A young girl lingered near one of the exhibits, her eyes wide with curiosity. May knelt beside her, pointing softly to a pair of tiny shoes. These, she whispered, belonged to women who walked in grace, carrying both beauty and pain. Every step was measured, every ribbon tied with care, every ache endured in silence. The girl leaned closer, imagining the small feet that had danced, endured, and persevered. May continued, her voice gentle as the hush of a courtyard at dawn. They taught lessons of patience, courage, and resilience. Though the world has changed, the quiet power of their footsteps remains, a memory we carry, a story we honor. The museum became more than a place of artifacts, it was a sanctuary of memory. Each ribbon, each shoe, each faded photograph held whispers of lives lived in endurance and grace. And May realized that though the silk no longer wrapped feet, the lessons of patience, beauty, and strength remained, silently guiding generations forward. Outside, the wind carried petals from nearby cherry blossoms, swirling gently across the museum courtyard. May closed her eyes, letting the soft fragrance and the gentle motion remind her of courtyards long ago, of gardens where children played, of bound feet that had danced and endured. She imagined May and Lin, her daughter, walking barefoot through soft earth, free yet carrying the echoes of the past in memory. The petals seemed to trace the rhythm of small, careful steps, the cadence of generations, the poetry of women who had walked quietly through life with grace and strength. In that final stillness, the museum, the artifacts, and the memories became one. The soft rustle of silk, the echo of footsteps, and the whispers of lilies lingered in the mind, a testament to the delicate balance of beauty and endurance, of love and sacrifice, and of the stories that must be remembered. As the sun set, painting the sky in amber and rose, May walked slowly to the exit, leaving the museum filled with silence, petals, and quiet lessons. The legacy of the Lotus women remained, not in pain alone, but in memory, reflection, and the soft poetry of their enduring footsteps.